explain?
Yeah, well, I hate to start just such a wonderful program we have ahead of us and such a beautiful day. I hate to start off with some bad news.
Uh-oh.
You ready for the bad news?
I'm not fired, am I?
No. Did you hear about Adrian, the new guy?
Adrian, you fired him?
No, but he's no longer with us.
He's no longer with us?
No, he's not with us. There is a guy who looks just like him. Okay. He talks just like him, acts just like him, but he's not Adrian, the new guy.
So what did God have against him?
He has a new name.
Okay.
You ready for the new name?
Yeah.
Mac Daddy Del Norte. What do you say?
Mac Daddy Del Norte.
Yeah.
And we have him working for us.
And he's running the Facebook Live, the YouTube Live. For those of you who are at home, you can always listen on the radio. We love that. We're on 1590 AM, 95.9 FM in El Paso, 89.3 FM in beautiful Las Cruces, streaming worldwide on KELPradio.com. But we're also on YouTube Live right now, Facebook Live. Just look for KELP Radio. And if you have any questions, I think people are going to have questions today. We're going to learn Kenny on the board.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because, I do not have a college degree.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I went to college, but I never got a degree.
Mac Daddy Del Norte has a college degree, I bet you.
Oh, I bet.
But,
like that.
but I do not have a college degree. But that's why I started doing this show, so that I could learn every week. Never stop learning, Kenny on the board.
Never.
So if you have questions, use the comment section in Facebook, YouTube. We'll get to as many of those as we can. Our guest today is very special. Do you know why he's special, Kenny on the board?
You always say it better. But he is also your friend.
Well, he is my friend, but he is the unique expression of an endlessly creative God. He grew up, he's a true son of the borderland.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Do you know what city he's from?
Hopefully this town.
No, he's not from El
this
Paso.
part of the border. Okay.
No, he's not. He is a true son of the borderland. He's not from El Paso. He's not from Juarez. He's not from Fabens. He's not from Anthony.
He's not from California, is he?
No.
Okay, good.
No, I get really concerned.
That's me. We got enough of that.
Yeah, exactly. He grew up in Las Cruces.
Oh, cool.
We need to have more Las Cruces here. But after graduating from NMSU with a degree in civil engineering, he spent 5 months in Indonesia, working with a team doing water and wastewater projects in undeveloped villages and trying to share the love and good news of Jesus. He and his wife, Charissa, have lived in El Paso for 8 years, have 4 kids with foster care and adoption being a part of their family story. That's pretty cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and
Good job, bro.
also he has an athletic background. He is an athlete.
Cool.
He recently placed first in a pickleball competition. It was men's doubles, a Central El Paso pickleball competition. He and his pickleball partner in the group stage went undefeated, and then through the semifinals the whole way through. It was the first time that had ever happened in that pickleball competition, that tournament.
You may have to explain pickleball to some of our listeners.
Yeah, you can Google that.
Okay.
He's worked as an engineer for over 10 years, primarily on public infrastructure such as streets, highways, water lines, sewer lines, and drainage infrastructure. I'm a little concerned that I'm the only one who's interested in this, but I have a lot of questions for him today. He has a passion for designing sustainable cities that are efficient, livable, and beautiful.
Okay, that's pretty good right there.
Yeah, I agree, Kenny on the board. So without further ado, wherever you are, but especially if you're in Las Cruces, where our special guest is from today, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome for the one, the only, Mr. Andrew Wong! Andrew, welcome to 915 Talk.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of 915 Talk, 575 Talk.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I noticed that right away.
Yes.
Don't you worry.
we do not mean to exclude our beautiful neighbors to the north. So it's really good to have you here. I'm so excited to talk about this. We've talked about this before, just informally, about cities, how they work. To get us started, I moved to El Paso a little over 2 years ago. And then it's kind of a miraculous story, but our family bought a house. And one of my concerns in buying a house was, it's silly, but I lived all over the world. And one of the things I was always taught as a missionary is when you start a new missionary location, you need one thing. You need one thing before you start that location.
Jesus.
Ding, ding, yes.
Ding. Right answer.
Yes. Well,
yes, absolutely the right answer.
And the second thing, a source of water.
Oh, okay, that's important too.
Yeah, a water source. And I was actually like, am I buying a house in a place where we're going to run out of water? And I know you've worked on a lot of these projects. You know a lot about this, but my very simple question is, it's probably not simple, but it's a very basic question, is it doesn't seem that El Paso has a water shortage, but we're in the middle of the desert. Where does the water come from?
Well, it's actually kind of funny that you asked that question, because if you'd asked that maybe 30 or 40 years ago, the answer would have been, yes, we have a water shortage problem. So in the 70s, and I think, or maybe the early 80s, there was a study that was done to look at the water levels of the aquifers in El Paso. And
the aquifers.
The aquifers. So aquifers are the underground, the groundwater sources. So basically like big lakes that are, anywhere between 5 feet underground to several thousand feet underground.
So there's water 5 feet underground?
In certain places, or there used to be.
Okay.
There used to be.
Gotcha.
So when this area was first settled, the river level was basically the groundwater level. So if you dug a hole and you got down to the level where the river was, you usually hit water.
Here in El Paso?
In El Paso, down the valley.
How many years ago did you say?
Yeah, that would have been like back when the area was first settled.
Oh, like the 17, 1800s,
exactly.
whatever. Okay.
But then for a long time, people mostly just depended on on wells to pump water out of the groundwater, because groundwater is clean. You don't have to treat it, so it goes straight from the pump.
Ever?
You do a little bit of disinfection, and then it goes into the pipes. So it's really, really easy to extract and to pump to people. And so that's what people depended on for a long time. But in the 80s, there was a report that came out that said that El Paso was going to run out of water in about 50 years.
In the 80s, that was going to run out in 50 years. So we're there now.
We're there now.
So did I make a wrong decision in acquiring a...
So it's time to sell your house. Because next year is the year, apparently.
For those listening, this is humor. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This is humor. So, they did a lot of El Paso Water, which is a utility company. It's kind of like a part of the city. They did a lot of work to shore up the water supply for the city. And diversify it. So they diversified beyond just groundwater. So one of the things that they've done now is they built a big water treatment plant that gets water from the river. So now we get about 40% of our water on a normal non-drought year from the Rio Grande. Actually.
Really?
Yeah. So if you ever look at the Rio Grande...
I have so many follow-up questions, but I think you can see them looking at me, so just continue.
I saw the disappointment in there. And you reach for your bottled water real quick.
We're enjoying some Mexican mineral water, carbonated.
This comes from I don't know.
I don't think it comes from the Rio Grande. I hope not.
That's a pretty in-depth process that they do. They pull the water out. They have to get all the particles to settle out of it, and then they do more disinfection. So they have a big treatment plant that pulls water out of the river. They treat it.
Where is that plant?
That one's it's Surprise down by the river. But kind of I think that one's kind of central here.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. All right.
And so that's one of the big sources of water that they have now. And then there's two, like I said, there was aquifers. So someone explained this to me. If you think about the mountains just continuing down, so you see the rock shape on both sides, and instead of going down into the valley where it's like dirt instead of rock, you imagine that rock keeping going at that same angle.
Right.
That's basically what they do. So they have...
That's an aquifer.
That's an aquifer. So it's basically this big stone bathtub that's filled with dirt, but inside the dirt there's water. Right?
Really?
Yeah. So we got one on the west side and one on the west side.
Okay. East side and west side. And those rock basins go down sometimes thousands of feet.
Yeah.
And the water doesn't leave because of the rock wall?
Because of the rock wall, yeah. But the interesting thing about it,
I'm doing well in comprehension, aren't I?
there you go. You could have a degree. You'll have a degree by the end of this.
Okay. So there's one on the west side, one on the east side.
Yes. But the interesting thing is, surprise, there's no rock wall at the border. So we share an aquifer with Juarez. Actually, both of our aquifers go across the border.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of funny. I don't know why I would think that aquifers would respect international boundaries.
Yeah, they don't really care about that. No, they don't. No.
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
So do we? I don't know if you know this, but with Juarez, do we somehow have to agree on how much we're pulling out and how much they're pulling out?
That's a complicated question there. Because water, like if one side pumps more out, the water will kind of go from one side and it'll like get sucked into the other side.
Right.
So we really are dependent on the same bathtub of water down there.
So there has to be some kind of cooperation.
There has to be.
Yeah.
But that was a big part of why El Paso continued to develop other sources of water because they don't want to be fully dependent on what's happening across the border for their water source.
Because there is no rock wall. There's only one beautiful...
I mean, I guess they could try that.
Beautiful... But... No, I'm sorry. We shouldn't go there. There's a different wall, but not one underground.
Gotcha. I heard there are tunnels underground,
yes.
But that's a different story.
Exactly. Okay. So there's the aquifer, there's the Rio Grande, and what's the third?
So there's actually two more sources of water. So you can see how when I said they diversified, they really went big.
Okay.
One is... up north of the northeast side of El Paso.
Okay.
The aquifer is really salty.
Okay.
So that water,
it's brackish.
Brackish is
I was hoping that today we would use that word brackish. It's not every day you get to say brackish.
Yeah. Drop that one in there.
That just means salty?
It's just salty, yeah.
Okay.
So
salty water.
It's about like a tenth as salty as seawater.
A tenth as salty as seawater. To the north of the northeast of El Paso.
So you don't want to drink it. Be nasty.
Right.
It won't be good for you.
Okay.
But so in the 2000s, what they did is they built the largest inland desalination plant in the world, I believe, at the time.
Okay.
So it's a state-of-the-art facility. People went over to Israel to learn about this technology, brought experts back, and they helped us develop this desalination plant. So they can basically create, it costs more money, more energy to create this water than pumping it straight out of the ground. But it's a massive resource. So anytime they need to create more water from that desalination plant, they can do it. They just turn up the pumps and remove the salt, and then we get nice, fresh, clean water into our pipes.
That's amazing. So I just want to stop for a second and say this is Christian radio. And I love that we're talking about this.
Living water, you need some Bible verses?
Well,
I can throw these out here.
I was just going to use something more broad than that. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And we as the church so often are focused on what's happening nationally. We don't know what's happening in our own city. So I love that we're talking about this, getting to know something that's extremely basic. I don't know if this is really talked about that much. We're being a little nerdy here, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if you're aware.
I know. It's been part of my identity since we decided to go to engineering school, really. So I've accepted that.
So we have desalination, we have aquifers, we have a clean aquifer that we share with Juarez. We have a brackish aquifer that's our own. We have the Rio Grande. What else do we have?
Well, here's a fun one.
Okay.
Right now, they're building what they call advanced water reuse.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Don't tell me. I'm afraid you're going to tell me.
Remember I was talking about the Rio Grande?
Yes.
Where do you think that water comes from anyways? Our good neighbors up north.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Las Cruces.
Yes.
Yeah. And where do you think their wastewater goes?
Oh, no. Andrew, are you telling me what I think you're telling me?
You can fill in the blank.
Okay.
Yeah, you can fill in the blank.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so they treat
tap water.
Yeah. Do you have a water filter in your home?
You know, I do. It's mainly for flavor.
Oh, okay.
Because where I am, there's a little bit of a weird flavor in the water.
But you trust the purification process.
I drink tap water all the time.
Yeah.
For some reason, I make my coffee out of tap water all the time. Maybe
Okay.
the extra minerals make the coffee taste better.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
I got you. All right. So you said reuse.
Yeah.
So our wastewater we're reusing. That's what you're saying.
That's the idea.
Is that happening, or is
It's
that
already happening. So they have a whole network of.
Tina, the office manager, is not impressed. She's here in the studio taking photos for KELP Radio Facebook. She is not impressed with that. But okay, continue. She's a little bit of a germaphobe.
Yeah, so they already when we treat all of our wastewater here in El Paso, and right now they take that water and they use it for irrigation. So a lot of the parks right now are already irrigated by the treated wastewater.
Okay.
So when you see don't drink the water from the sprinklers, that's why you don't want to drink the water from the sprinklers.
Right.
But basically for the advanced water reuse, they'll take that water and they'll do the extra steps. It's kind of a combination between the water that the plant that takes the water out of the Rio Grande with the disinfection and everything, and then the desal plant where they have special filters that pull out everything to the smallest particle.
Yeah.
So it's a proven technology. Lots of people feel a little uncomfortable about it, but the reality is we're already doing it. Because every drop of water that's here in the world has already been probably drunk by some organism at some point and passed through the system.
That's true.
There is no new water.
And the Creator made a great purification system that we use. And, exactly. So are all of these enough to keep us supplied for the future, or do we have another 50 years? What do we have?
Maybe 20 years you need to sell your house. No. No, actually, I mean, with all these, the final thing that they've done is they've actually bought a significant amount of water rights out near Del City. So if you take Montana and you just keep driving for about 30, 40 minutes, you pass on the left, there's an area called Del City. And they have their own aquifer, and it is pristine water. So what El Paso's done is they bought a portion of that water. And so if they ever start running low here, they can just pump all that water to El Paso. From Del City.
How will the people in Del City, they'll be okay?
Del City is a really small community. They use it
they
for...
don't need water.
It's a ton of water. Like, it's a huge aquifer down
It's like bigger than what we have here.
I don't know comparatively, but it's a lot of water.
Okay, gotcha. You know, it's interesting because last week we had a veterinarian on, and we gave a legal disclaimer saying the information provided on this broadcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not to be construed as medical or veterinary advice. I just want to say today, the information provided on this broadcast is not to be construed as water purification advice. Always consult your licensed water purification specialist before making any water purification decisions.
Yes, your personal.
As every situation is unique, and in this broadcast is not to be construed as water purification advice. So we have all these things. We're good for a good number of years. There's not restrictions on the use of water in El Paso, which is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. No one's keeping tabs. You can kind of.
I mean, that is the other side of in the 70s. What they did is they had some really, really big efforts to reduce the water consumption. Okay. Yeah. So we've reduced our per capita water consumption by, I think, 30 or 40%.
Yeah.
So it's gone. So it was kind of a both process. Yeah. More water and use less water.
One of the worst, most hypocritical things I've ever done as a father is I put those water, on the shower heads to reduce the amount of water on the kids, on all the kids' showers, and mine doesn't have it. But I don't shower as long as they do.
Yeah, well, that's just because of the water bill right there.
Right, exactly. So this is great. There's a lot more to dive into. We're also going to be talking about traffic, what can be done about traffic here in the borderland. We're going to go into the lightning round. We have a lot to unpack. We're going to have Charlie One later on in the broadcast talking about the traffic. We'll get your input on that. But first, we're going to take a break. We're here with Andrew Wong, who's a civil engineer, just talking about the borderland, our community, and how it works. Let's go to break. Do not touch that dial. 915 Talk is listener supported. If you believe that local Christian talk radio is important to our community, please take a moment to prayerfully consider taking part. For all donation options, including secure online giving, visit kelpradio.com and click on the Cornerstone Broadcasting link. Let's reach our neighbors in the borderland together.
915.
Testify.
probably 2011, I was going through a really rough patch in my life at that point for like 2 years. And at that point, I was out living on my own. Even though I was married, we were separated for like 2 years, just me and the dog. It's kind of funny sometimes when you're off by yourself and you realize just me and the dog, nobody else to turn to. You start turning to the Lord. I messed up here. How do I fix this? Through trying to find some hope in the situation at that point that seemed hopeless. And it's especially the part that I waited patiently for the Lord. Like I told you earlier, I think you could take the patiently out of there. I waited. I was not always patient, but the Lord works on His time, not on mine. And He did. He brought me up out of the pit of destruction and out of the miry clay, which He did. He brought me up out of a lot of stuff, got a life turned back around, saved a lot of things in my life besides just me. I'm Keith Terrell, and if Jesus did this for me, He can do the same thing for you.
And they overcame Him by the blood of the Lamb
and by the word of their testimony.
KELPradio.com.
How can you talk about the New Testament without the Old Testament?
Jesus did not come out of nowhere.
From Moody Radio, it's Unwrapping Christmas in the Old Testament. Joel Rosenberg.
What makes Christmas so fascinating is that Jesus comes as Messiah, specifically fulfilling hundreds of ancient Hebrew prophecies.
Interviews and soundscapes recorded in Israel. Unwrapping Christmas in the Old Testament.
Join us Christmas Eve at 2 p.m. for this special program.
And we're back. We're on 915 Talk with Mr. Andrew Wong, who's a civil engineer. We're talking about the nuts and bolts of how the borderland works. And I did enjoy hearing just the announcement during the break. Next week, during Christmas week, we're going to have a lot of Christmas programming. I just want to mention that. So if you're running around town, going to a Christmas lunch or dinner or doing whatever you're doing or just at home, be sure to turn on KELP because we're going to have a lot of great Christmas programming throughout next week. So Andrew, we're back, and we're going to go into a segment of our show where I'm going to ask rapid fire questions.
Boy.
Yeah, because you came in kind of, I don't know, just like you're the expert on El Paso, on the borderland. And so we just need to see where you're at on the real issues. And so I'm going to ask the question, just answer kind of quickly. We are a Christian radio, faith-based, so we do believe in right and wrong answers. But we try not to be judgy if you're wrong. So without further ado, Kenny on the board, cue up the lightning round. Kenny on the board. He's on the phone. What's going on, Kenny on the board? Oh, yeah. Oh, we have Charlie. Oh, let's do Charlie. Yeah. Oh, don't. We're not doing the lightning round yet.
Yeah, let's talk to Charlie.
Charlie called in early. Let's talk to Charlie 1. Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, Kenny on the board's confused. Charlie 1 is confused. But we'll do Charlie 1 right now. Charlie 1, can you hear me? Charlie 1, can you hear me? Hey, Charlie 1, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Andy.
Oh, this is great. No feedback today. Last week we had some feedback.
That's true. But I think God must be with us today.
Yeah.
So, that's
yes, sir. Amen. This traffic report is brought to us by AlamoGlassPros.com. You know, when you're out there on the road and you have the sun just shining in your face because you're in beautiful Sun City, you might need to think about getting a little bit of tinting to get that glare off your window. The fine people that I know them personally at AlamoGlassPros.com will help you out. So what are you seeing out there on the roads, Charlie 1?
You know, and talking about that tinting, that comes in very handy because in El Paso at about 5:30 when that sun starts to go down on the west side, that downtown area gets right in your face and really slows down the traffic to a crawl right there. And that always happens when that sun goes down. It just bogs down the traffic on I-10 West. So very important that you get that done.
Exactly.
It's a must.
100%.
Well, we have some traffic, and it seems like all the traffic problems are on the west side right now. I want to go there first because first of all, we have Restaurant Red. That's a crash that's working. Also, Artcraft and South Desert, we have a crash there. PD at the scene there, waiting for a tow truck. And Donovan and Artcraft, we have a crash. So that's busy traffic right there. There's going to be a PD activity there, Donovan and Artcraft and South Desert. But then we swing to the east side where we have I-10 East at Lee Trevino with that right lane taken away. We have slowing there back to Loma Land with this afternoon commute, people coming home. I-10 East Torino, take away the right lane for construction, and you have a lot of slowing there back to Loma Land, moving very slowly. Another point. I-10 East at Porfirio Diaz, they take away the right lane for construction, actually closer to downtown. So it's backing up maybe about half a mile there. There's slow-moving traffic there, I-10 East at Porfirio Diaz. So those are the slow spots right now, Andy, that's plaguing motorists.
Gotcha. They keep on taking away that right lane on Lee Trevino.
They do. Yeah, a lot of construction going on there.
Yeah, for sure. We have someone on the radio today. We're about to talk about traffic and what can be done about that. Who you got? Do you have Daily Menudo? What you got going on, Charlie? One?
Yeah, it's at Daily Menudo, and you can get that at Mi Pueblito Cafe, 3123, where they're open tonight till 8 o'clock. Breakfast, lunch, dinner specials, the Mexican place, a menudo every day. Today, vegetarian options, and of course, it's all there. Mi Pueblito Cafe, 3123, Wood. And Andy, back to you.
Thank you, Charlie One. We'll talk later.
You betcha.
Yep. Yeah, Charlie One is a dynasty in traffic reports. I saw a newspaper report. It must have been from the 80s. He was standing on a bridge with a cell phone. That's how he did it back in the day. And so, fortunately, technology has advanced. And, Andrew, we're going to get a little bit later on. We're going to be talking about traffic in El Paso, what can be done, just some thoughts you might have as a civil engineer.
Everybody's favorite topic.
Yes, 100%. But I promised when we came back from the break that we're going to be talking about we're going to do the lightning round. But before we do that, have you ever had Daily Menudo?
No, I've had menudo, but I don't know what.
Well,
if you eat it every day, does it become daily?
Well, did you know Mac Daddy Del Norte, who's running our YouTube and Facebook? He loves Daily Menudo. He told me about it, and I had work to do, but he went on for like 10, 15 minutes. He just would not stop talking about the Daily Menudo. And the one time I tried to order menudo at a restaurant in El Paso, they didn't have Daily Menudo. They're like, you have to come back on Saturday. Can't imagine. I was like so depressed.
Well, he's got to bring you a cup. You can't go on and then never offer to bring something.
I know. He just talks about it.
Yeah.
That's all he does. That's Mac Daddy Del Norte for you. So we've gotten off track a little bit. Appreciate the call from Charlie One. So without further ado, Kenny on the board, cue up the lightning round. So, Andrew, first question. This is also a culinary question. It's a question you're often asked at eateries in El Paso.
And
Las Cruces, yes, for sure. And the question is, red or green?
Green.
That is correct.
I might have cheated a little bit, but it's genuinely green. Yes. 95% of the time.
Yeah, I love it. And where is your favorite place to answer that question?
There's a little hole-in-the-wall place on Doniphan called Las Fuentes.
Las Fuentes.
Good breakfast.
All right.
That's the place to go.
Okay, so next question. You have some guests coming to El Paso to visit you. Maybe they came as far away as Las Cruces. They came, and you really want to impress them with El Paso. Where's a place that you will take them? That's not that's not a restaurant.
And it's not anything to do with water.
Yes.
I was thinking the wastewater treatment plant. Okay, side tangent. When I was a kid, I was homeschooled. A big surprise, everybody here. And one of my field trips, as a kid, was to the wastewater treatment plant in Las Cruces.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had a great time. But most people didn't go to the wastewater treatment plant for field trips when they were kids, I guess.
Yeah, well, you had 6 brothers and sisters. You weren't Catholic. You were just homeschooled.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you. All right, so next question. Chico's Tacos, yes or no?
It's going to be a pass for me. I had a gordita the other day, and I felt it for a couple days. Yeah, okay. So I got a pass on Chico's.
Yeah, we won't get into that too much then. And then we talked a lot about water. Why does my water bill stay exactly the same to the dollar every month, regardless of what I do?
Really?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Well, I think some of the utilities will let you split up your bill across the year.
I never planned to do that.
So it's possible you sign up for that without meaning to.
Oh, okay.
And that's not true for me.
Okay. So is there something I can do that's not obvious to cut my water bill other than not using water, or what can I do about my water bill, Andrew? It's a lot. It feels like it's really expensive.
That's a good question. There are different tiers. So if you the first amount of water, you get charged a much lower rate, and then after you hit the bigger rate. So the big ones are I don't know if you have yard, grass, landscaping.
No, nothing like that. Just gravel.
Teenagers.
I do have teenagers, but I put those water reducers on their shower heads. Gotcha. So there's nothing that's not obvious. It's just be careful.
Yeah, be careful.
All right. Okay. All right. Next question. Bike lanes on the streets. Yes or no?
Yes, it's a yes for me. I like to ride a bike, so.
Yeah.
Oh. Did I not get any of the other questions right?
Yes. So Kitty apparently believes that this is the official KELP 915 talk position on bike lanes, but you like bike lanes. Okay. Cul-de-sacs. Let's talk about cul-de-sacs.
Oh, yeah.
Are cul-de-sacs safe for kids?
Cul-de-sacs are not safe for kids. They're actually more dangerous for kids from what I've heard.
Okay. So why is that?
Because people just get complacent and the kids go play in the street and then people just back up without looking.
Wow. Yeah, I put that in there because I knew that was your answer, and I think that's.
But that's not even the worst thing about cul-de-sacs. Now you got me triggered.
Okay. Tell me more about cul-de-sacs.
Cul-de-sacs, they were designed for cars only.
Okay.
And so when you have a neighborhood that's built with cul-de-sacs, you have like one entrance, one exit, and all the cars go in and out of those two places. But most people, if you want to walk or bike somewhere, you want to kind of walk in a straight line. And you can imagine going and hitting the end of a cul-de-sac and then turning around because you can't go that way. So cul-de-sacs, when you build a neighborhood with cul-de-sacs, it's kind of its own isolated thing. And there's not multiple ways in and out. As a car driver, that's fine because you don't care if you have to drive a little further. But as a bicyclist or a pedestrian, it can be really frustrating because it makes your path to get out of the neighborhood a lot longer.
Huh. Compared to a grid.
Compared to a grid.
So like a grid is more efficient.
Yeah, a grid is more efficient. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
More resilient too, because you can imagine with cul-de-sacs, if your one entrance in now the neighborhood gets construction on it,
okay,
you're really in trouble. But in a grid, if one street has construction, then you can take a different way.
This is bad news for our listeners in the far east of El Paso. There's a lot of cul-de-sacs.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's not really a sidewalk to speak of because the driveways kind of just come up right against each other.
Yeah.
All the way around. Anything else you need to get off your chest about cul-de-sacs?
Yeah, you got me going now. Yeah, I mean...
Tina, the office manager, apparently also has strong feelings about cul-de-sacs. She lives on one. Yeah. She's nodding her head. Yeah. People are really angry about this, Andrew. Keep talking.
Yeah, and the phones are probably blowing up right now.
Yeah. So what else you got on cul-de-sacs?
That's it.
Okay. We'll let them be. It's not their fault they're cul-de-sacs.
They exist. It's okay.
Okay. One thing that could be done to improve El Paso's public transportation.
Oh boy! Now you're getting
one
really
thing. It doesn't have to be the most important thing.
Yeah.
The main thing. Just one thing.
I think one thing that a lot of people are doing in big cities is they're doing these bus rapid transit networks. So they'll have these dedicated bus lanes.
Okay.
So that way, sometimes it causes a little bit more traffic for all the cars on the road, but the bus just keeps going. And so what that does is it incentivizes people to use the bus because you're sitting there stuck in traffic and you see the bus just kind of cruising down the road, and all of a sudden you realize that actually would be a faster way to get to work. So bus dedicated lanes.
Okay. Yep. Is there any way we could have a light rail service, maybe parallel to I-10 between Horizon City and Canutillo?
You got $500 million?
Not yet. but that's not even something anyone's talking about. Right?
Not to my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay. That's
unfortunately
sad.
Not. Yeah.
That would be amazing. One thing that could reduce traffic on I-10.
Oh, okay. Well, here's a good one. There's something that's already happening.
Okay.
It's not just a pie in the sky. So there's a plan called the Border Expressway.
The Border Expressway.
Because a big percentage of the traffic on I-10 is street traffic. Trucks that are just going from California to Florida or something like that.
Sure.
So the Border Expressway, it'll pick up traffic from Loop 375 and take it north.
Okay.
Over the Anthony Gap, New Mexico 404.
Right. So what would the route be? Like you would go 375, then 54 north.
Yeah, kind of like
Martin
past
Luther King.
Yeah, it's kind of in that area.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would be basically with no stoplights. It'd be access controlled, 65, 70 miles an hour. So what that'll do is it'll take about 10 minutes off the time to go past El Paso rather than through El Paso.
Okay.
So it should take a really big percentage of that through traffic off of the roads and out of downtown where the traffic is the worst. So that should help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of trucks driving through town, and I believe in capitalism, so I'm happy to see them, but not always.
Yeah.
Can you speak into the border entry points? Is there something that can be done there?
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Santa Teresa, New Mexico, and Sunland Park both have plans to build or expand their border crossings.
Okay.
In conjunction with the roadway network in Juarez. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to push a lot of the border traffic to the outsides of the cities.
Okay.
So if you want to come, if they're bringing stuff across the border and they want to go west, it'll go through Santa Teresa, and if it wants to go east,
so you're talking about products, like you're talking about trucks. Again.
Yeah, trucks coming across.
Keeping trucks from
because that's a big part of what holds up. The trucks take up so much more room than the little personal cars.
Right.
So if you can get those out of the city and inside the city, it's just normal everyday people crossing. It'll help a lot.
Okay. Then your hot take on when we have rainstorms and we have so much water drainage. Where does that water go? Like, does it all go into like? I'm the only person who. Did someone? I'm sorry. Okay. I have to say this on air. So somebody called in. Kenny on the board put this on our monitor so we can read it. We were talking about cul-de-sacs, and I think you have to take back everything that you said.
Yeah, that's true. It's
because they said God lives in a cul-de-sac, only one way in. I love it. Whoever called in to say that, please always call into 915 Talk. We want to see that. So God lives in a cul-de-sac, only one way in.
That was our mark.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So what were we talking? Oh, the rainwater. Where does it go? We aren't flooding Juarez. Like, where does it go once it hits the border?
There's a thing in the border called a river.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just goes in the river?
It goes in the river, yeah.
And the river's like big enough to handle this?
Oh, yeah. Well, for the most part, yeah.
Okay.
For anything that happens in El Paso, it's big enough.
Because I live on a street where if I'm parked on the street, it's no bueno.
Yeah, the problem isn't the river. The problem is getting it to the river.
Oh.
Yeah. So all the streets and the channels and the storm drain that needs to get the water through your house and from your neighborhood.
Yeah, I have big problems when it rains on my street.
You didn't look into you thought you had a problem with water, with not enough water, and really your problem is having too much water. Yeah. And this is actually a big thing because that I do a lot of drainage in my work, and something that people often try to do is they just try to get that water out of there as fast as possible. But there's a lot you can do with your own house to reuse that water for your landscaping. So like in my backyard, I keep all that water in the backyard. I don't want that water leaving because I want to go into my trees, into my grass, and into my plants instead of down the road.
Okay.
Water's expensive, so why not keep it when God gives it to you from the sky?
You're harvesting water.
Yeah.
I love it.
Rainwater harvesting.
You're way ahead of the rest of us. We just got a question in, I believe, on Facebook. I live in Socorro. Is it okay to drink the water there, or bottled water better? Or is it any different than El Paso there?
Yeah. So all of the water utilities, I think in Socorro you'd be in the lower water valley district, and they have routine tests that are mandated by the EPA.
Okay.
With some pretty strict guidelines about what you can and cannot have in your water. So if one of those tests comes back negative, it throws a bunch of red flags, and they're required to notify you that they've had a breach in their water quality.
So what we're saying, Irma, is the water in Socorro is all good.
Yeah,
you're good to go.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
It's super interesting, just the resourcefulness to make this all work.
Oh yeah,
and safe and everything else.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. So we're okay on rain. You're using rain to your advantage. I like that, Andrew.
Yeah.
I couldn't have expected anything different from you. Next question. Can American cities become walkable? Is that possible? And follow-up question. What is one step we could take to make El Paso more walkable?
Oh man, now you're really trying to trigger me over here.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And we're hold on. We're going to talk about that after the break.
There we go.
And before we go into break, I do want to thank all of our impact partners for being a part of this journey here at KELP. To find all of our impact partners, you can go on KELPradio.com to see who's a part of this. It's AlamoGlassPros.com, Living Hope Counseling Service. It's difficult to ask for help, but it shouldn't be difficult to find. Just look up livinghopeccs.org. Caring Companions, that's Home Elder Care Service, caringcompanionsep.com. Love what they're doing. And Sun City Calvary Chapel. And more people are becoming impact partners of KELP. We love it. We love sharing about what you're doing, whether it be ministry or business or whatever. As the church in El Paso, let's get to meet together in the time between church services, in the market, and through education, through whatever. Let's meet together. So a big thank you to all those impact partners. We're going to talk about El Paso becoming walkable, and Andrew's plan to make that happen after this break. Do not touch that dial. It's Christmas season. What does the coming of Christ mean to you? Pastor Terry Gray of Sun City Calvary Chapel on El Paso's west side.
When I think of Christmas, I think of the most amazing sacrificial journey that's ever been made in all of human history. And it's the journey that Jesus took. He left his home in glory in heaven to become man. He entered this world in such a humble way, a baby, born in Bethlehem, in a barn, wrapped in swaddling clothes, laid in a manger, to a couple in absolute poverty, living his life as a humble carpenter in Nazareth for some 30 years, ultimately going to the cross to bear our sins, to die in our place, then his body wrapped in grave clothes, and his body laid in a tomb, sealed by a stone. Jesus went down from heaven to a barn, to a cross, to a grave. All of that so we could find salvation. What a journey. We live in an incredible time, Christmas week. The whole world stops. A lot of people don't know why they stop, but we Christians know. It's the celebration of a Savior who came to this world to forgive us of our sins and paid a terrible price for it. Let's proclaim that. Let's unwrap that this year for our families, for our co-workers, for our circle of friends, in our churches, in our services, in our gatherings, in our celebrations. Jesus Christ is Lord of Lords and King of Kings.
And we're back on 915 Talk. Next week's Christmas week. I'm excited. I'm excited. Are you doing anything special for Christmas, Andrew?
Yeah, I have family coming in from all directions, so it's going to be a fun time.
But especially Las Cruces.
Especially Las Cruces. And Houston.
Oh, okay.
Actually, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So before we went to break, we mentioned a topic that is, it seemed like you were really triggered.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, yeah, I could tell. So talking about American cities being walkable, so you said during the break, the main question is that something we want. We could ask the listener that, but it seems like that's something that you want. So tell me why that's something that you want. Why does that matter?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing, and I should have looked this statistic up earlier, but I believe it's something like only 60-something% of people have a car and drive.
Wait, what?
Only 60% of Americans have a car and can drive. So,
wow.
So you're talking about the kids are included in that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's interesting.
Kids, elderly people are included in that.
Well, kids these days, listen to this,
yeah.
Andrew. Teenagers, they're not in a rush to get their driver's license anymore.
I know.
That has changed.
That's changed too.
Like radically.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 16, it was on my birthday. I was at the Highway Patrol in Ohio getting my driver's license. Now it's like, oh, I can wait a year or two, like, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, continue. So.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all sorts of in a broad picture. There's been this like adoption of cars is kind of the central part of our society in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And cars are amazing. Like I love my minivan. I mean, it's awesome. But
everyone hear that? Andrew has an awesome minivan.
It is. Minivans are a feat of engineering.
Hey, what's wrong with minivans?
Exactly.
Kenny on the board drives a minivan.
Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that.
It was a gift from God.
Yes.
So was mine.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
I also have a payment on it, but thank you God for that car payment.
Right.
But yeah, so there's a significant portion of the population that if they want to get somewhere, they're going to have to walk or ride a bike.
Right.
And so when our cities are completely built around people driving, you're actually excluding the mobility needs of a really significant portion of the population.
Okay.
So that's important. Secondly is we in America, we love our cars. I love my car. But we often go to visit places where you don't have to have a car.
Okay.
So we live in cities that are all built around cars, but our vacation places like Disneyland, like New York City, like Paris, the places that we want to go for fun because they're beautiful, they're actually walkable places. And I think there's this dichotomy where it's like I can visit that, but why can't we also live in places that are like that, where you actually have the ability to walk to your grocery store and whatever. So the biggest thing to do, it's a little bit counterintuitive. It's this idea called 15-minute cities.
Okay.
So 15-minute cities are basically saying you put in every 15-minute walkable area. So like think about how far you can walk in 15 minutes. It's about a mile max. You make sure to have a coffee shop, a little grocery store, a little drugstore, a restaurant. So like little mini city centers.
Okay.
Back in the day, you had plazas. You had everybody
like mini
had
downtowns.
Little mini downtowns. So you put one of those in every neighborhood. It generates some jobs that the teenagers can go work at without having a car.
That's a big issue. It's huge, actually.
Yeah.
I know a lot about that.
Mm-hmm. Go get a job. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't want to drive your kid.
I do not. I drive them enough.
Exactly. So 15-minute cities. So kind of developing more of these little mini downtowns where people, and it actually does another thing. It brings people together. So in today's world, we're getting more and more siloed. First there was a car, so now you just drive from your work to your house to your church and so on. And then there's the internet, which does even more to separate people into their little groups. Right. But if you have more of these little community gathering centers, a little park with a couple shops around it, people that are just your neighbors, you're going to be gathering together. You're going to be getting together with people that are a little bit different from you, getting to know your neighbors. It's a really beautiful thing. It's how most places in the world work. It's just not how it works here.
Yeah, when my family and we moved back to America, that was the most difficult thing for our children, is that there wasn't anywhere to walk to.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, they didn't have driver's licenses and so on, and they had so much freedom to move around where we were living before. But moving here, they couldn't walk somewhere, and it was extremely difficult for them. And it is how most of the world's working. And I don't know. I shouldn't say this and I don't say this flippantly, but I think God wants our cities to be walkable.
Yeah.
Because He wants us to interact with each other. He wants us to see each other, be healthy.
Yeah.
There's so many things, and He doesn't want us to be just in our rooms by ourselves with our Netflix and our Uber Eats.
And I think you hit it on the head, right? Like, because it's not just about having a good sidewalk or a good bike path. It's actually, you can have the best bike path, but if it doesn't go anywhere that you want to go, you're not going to walk on that bike path or that sidewalk. So you got to have places that people can gather. And I agree. Like, how are we supposed to love our neighbor? which is one of the central commandments in Scripture.
For sure.
If we don't even see our neighbor.
Yeah.
Like they drive into their garage, and that's the only time you see them.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot that can be done just to, and we can. That's actually something that we can do. There's a family, there's a group in my neighborhood that just started a coffee shop just in the neighborhood. They're the only people right there, but they have a coffee shop in the neighborhood, and now I finally have a place to walk to, and I do. But before I didn't, because it was like a 20-minute walk anywhere I want to go.
Right. I got it. Gotcha. So we have several minutes left. We've talked about all these things that are related to city, to infrastructure. We could talk easily for a couple more hours. What I want to ask you is, you're a man of faith. You're a Christian. Many Christians, I don't know if they would say this explicitly, but it's kind of like, Jesus is coming soon, and why should we worry about investing in our city? What would you say to that?
I mean, yeah, you're bringing eschatology into it, and I don't have the answers when it comes to that. I take Jesus' words literally, that nobody knows the day or the hour, and that means that we don't necessarily know if it's going to be in the next 50 years. And I think it was you that was saying, because you believe Jesus is coming, that doesn't mean you don't fix your roof or decorate your house or paint your walls.
Did I say that?
You did say that, or somebody really smart, but now I'm beginning.
It was me.
So I think that same thing applies to our cities. Like we don't know how long we're going to be here, and actually, one of our first mandates in Scripture was to go and fill the earth and cultivate it and subdue it and steward it. And so I think that applies to our neighbors and our cities. And I think when you think about your city not just being the highways or the tall buildings or the wastewater treatment plants, but you think about it as all the people that live in the city, that kind of changes things, because you want to do things. I think as Christians, we should be pursuing things that make the lives of all the people around us better.
Right. I love it. There's a lot to just unpack there. So the other question with that is, I don't know if it's even more difficult, but well, I'll just say what I think, and maybe you can just kind of riff off of that. But when I was doing missionary training, I was a missionary for many years. One of the things that we were told at one point is, when we think about where we can meet with God, we think about a mountain lake in the forest. But where is God's love more deep than in a city where there's so many people that he gave his life for? And we think of cities as being places where there's so much sin, which is absolutely true, but the love of God is even greater. And how can we serve our neighbors better? And how can we, if we're beautifying our own home, why wouldn't we want to beautify our neighbors, for the city, for our neighbors? So
absolutely.
So that's just another thought, related to that.
And I think something that I think a lot of people feel really, really helpless when it comes to actually seeing things change in their city. Because it just feels like there's these people somewhere, high up there making all the decisions. So something that I really wanted to leave people with is that there are lots and lots of ways that anybody can get involved in making their city better.
Okay.
So here in El Paso, there's something called El Paso 311. You can do it. You go online, just Google
El Paso 311. Not to be confused with 915 Talk.
No. Or
totally different.
Or 575 Talk.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can go on there, and if there's like a sidewalk that's broken in your neighborhood, or a street light that's out, or a street that people speed on all the time, you can put in a request in there, and they respond to every single one. That doesn't mean that it necessarily gets fixed, but I've done that and gotten things fixed in my neighborhood just by getting online and saying, hey, this is a problem.
We did that at the radio station, because across the street there was a stop sign that was leaning over behind a light pole, and we just heard tires squealing outside. So
exactly.
too often
it works, and they are paying attention. So these are real people that are tracking these things, and then they have the ability to make the change. So the normal person has the ability to just do that, and if there's a problem you see, report it, and most of the time it will get fixed sooner or later. The second one is getting to know
Do they do like yard work or?
In their yard, yes. Yeah. But a lot of times, like, there's a lot on there that are for weeds in the medians. And people will be like, hey, there's weeds in the medians, and then they'll come, in a week or two and come cut it.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And the second one would be to get to know your city councilor.
Okay.
So they all have offices. They all have emails. You can go over there and meet them. You can call them. You can send them letters. I don't know all of them. My city councilor is actually pretty responsive. So when I send something, he's like, yeah, let's talk about this.
Did you go to his office and talk to him?
I just sent an email or a phone call.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, I would feel really awkward. Like I was going to the psychologist. I don't know who's supposed to, what are we going to talk about? Who's going to start the conversation?
Yeah, well, it's just whatever you want to talk about. So that's their job is to listen to you. So
okay, but emailing works.
Emailing, works. I mean, that's a little bit further back. But if they see a face, then that adds even more like, oh, I want to help you.
Right.
And that might not be true for all of them, but I think for the most part, most of the city councilors are there because they want to make the city better.
Yeah.
And you've got to hear from the people to know how to make it better. Yeah. So your voice matters, and you can make real things happen.
Love that. We're coming to the end. Any last words of encouragement for our beautiful Borderland community? Any other dreams you want to share? Anything else to say about water treatment?
I think just a lot of people just don't understand what a beautiful city this really is. It is so unique, and if you've traveled around the world, you understand that there's something really, really special in the people here, but also in the kind of city that it is, in the history that there is, in the fact that we share a border with Juarez and we're part of this borderland. So there's something really beautiful to this, and I think if we can have an attitude of cultivating that and of loving our neighbors by trying to make our city better, I think that would be a beautiful thing. I think a lot of people adopt an attitude of cynicism when it comes to our cities, and that doesn't get a whole lot done.
Right.
When you have an attitude of like, we can do something to make this change,
then something can change.
Something can change. It might not be 100% of what you want, but hey,
it'll be better than it was.
It'll be better than it was. Exactly.
And it wouldn't be great if it was God's people kind of leading some of those things.
Out of love. Out of love instead of out of fear or cynicism.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in today, Andrew. We've been with Andrew Wong. He's a civil engineer, brother in Christ, just talking about infrastructure, talking about the city. I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope our listeners have as well. Just as a reminder, all our conversations are available both in audio and video format to listen to later. Just look for that 915 Talk link on KELPradio.com. And this conversation will replay tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And until next time, as we always say, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbor, and give God all the glory.
Amen.
This has been 915 Talk.
You have been listening to 915 Talk on KELP Christian Radio. To listen to past recordings of 915 Talk, just visit KELPradio.com and click on the 915 Talk link. Until next time, love your neighbor, love your city, and give God all the glory.